The year was 2157 and humans had built homes on 12 different star systems. Earth remained the center of everything important for human people. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his research ship called Meridian as it moved through space near the outer edges of human territory. His crew had been exploring new areas for 3 months when something amazing happened. The communications officer Lisa turned to Jake with wide eyes. She had detected signals from an unknown source. The signals were not random noise but organized patterns that could only come from intelligent beings. Jake felt his heart beat faster as he realized what this meant. Humans had finally found other intelligent life in the universe. Admiral Lisa Carter received the news at Earth's main military base. She was the highest-ranking military person in all of human space. When the report reached her desk about first contact with aliens, she immediately called President Kevin Hayes. The president ordered all military ships to move carefully and prepare for peaceful contact. He wanted this first meeting to go well. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in the science department on Earth. She studied alien life forms even though humans had never found any before. When the news came about real aliens, she could barely contain her excitement. She had spent her whole career preparing for this moment. The aliens called themselves Zephyrians, and they wanted to meet with human leaders. The meeting was set up at a space station called Unity that floated between human and alien territory. Admiral Carter took her best ships there and waited. Jake Morrison brought the Meridian to join the fleet. Dr. Brooks came aboard Carter's flagship to study the aliens when they arrived. The Zephyrian ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They looked like giant crystals that somehow moved through space. When the alien delegation came aboard Unity Station, humans got their first look at the beings inside. The Zephyrians were tall and their bodies seemed to be made of living crystal that changed colors as they moved. They had no faces like humans, but instead had smooth surfaces that glowed with different lights. High Commander Vextal led the alien group. When he spoke, the words came not from his mouth but appeared directly in human minds. Dr. Brooks realized the aliens were telepathic. They could put thoughts into other beings' heads without speaking. This made her nervous, but she tried to stay calm. The first meetings went well. High Commander Vextal seemed friendly and interested in learning about humans. He asked many questions about human culture and how their society worked. Admiral Carter answered carefully while Dr. Brooks took notes about everything the aliens said and did. The Zephyrians said they ruled a large empire with many worlds and billions of people. They had been watching humans for some time and were impressed by how quickly humans had spread to different planets. Vextal said his people wanted to establish trade and share knowledge with humans. President Hayes watched the meetings through video links from Earth. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. The aliens appeared peaceful and advanced. They offered to share some of their technology in exchange for human art and culture. Hayes felt proud that humanity's first contact with aliens was so successful. After 3 days of talks, High Commander Vextal made a special request. He wanted to broadcast a demonstration to all human worlds to show Zephyrian peaceful intentions. The alien said his people back home wanted to see humans and learn about them. A live broadcast across all human colonies would help both species understand each other better. Hayes agreed immediately. This seemed like a wonderful way to share this historic moment with all humans everywhere. Admiral Carter set up the transmission. Systems and Dr. Brooks helped prepare educational material about both species to include in the broadcast. Jake Morrison watched from the Meridian as technicians prepared the broadcast equipment. His ship was positioned to relay the signal to outer colonies. Like everyone else, he felt excited to be part of this moment in human history. The broadcast began at exactly noon Earth time. Billions of humans across 12 star systems watched their screens as High Commander Vextal appeared. The alien's crystal body glowed with beautiful colors as he began to speak directly into viewers' minds. Greetings, humans of all worlds. The alien's voice echoed in everyone's thoughts. Today marks a new beginning for both our species. We Zephyrians have watched your growth with great interest. Now we wish to show you something very important about our relationship. The transmission suddenly changed. Instead of showing the space station meeting room, screens across human space displayed the surface of New Haven Colony. This was one of humanity's most successful farming worlds, with 7 million people living peaceful lives. Jake Morrison felt confused as he watched families going about their daily activities on New Haven. Children, played in parks while their parents worked in fields and cities. Everything looked normal and happy. He wondered why the aliens were showing this. Then the horror began. Zephyrian ships appeared in New Haven's sky like dark crystals blotting out the sun. Energy beams shot down from the alien vessels and began striking human settlements. The beams did not just destroy buildings but completely vaporized every person they touched. Families running for safety simply vanished as the alien weapons found them. Children screaming for their parents disappeared in flashes of light. Elderly people who could not run fast enough were erased from existence. The Zephyrians were systematically murdering every human on New Haven while broadcasting it live to the entire human species. Dr. Brooks felt sick as she watched the massacre. The aliens were not showing mercy to anyone. They killed babies and grandparents with the same casual efficiency. Worse yet, she could hear the Zephyrians making sounds that seemed like laughter as they committed these murders. Admiral Carter stood frozen as 7 million human lives ended before her eyes. The alien weapons worked methodically across New Haven's surface, ensuring no one survived. Cities burned and forests withered under the energy assault. In less than 6 hours, an entire world full of human life had been exterminated. President Hayes watched in horror from Earth as his people died. He tried to contact the space station to stop the transmission, but found that all communications had been blocked by Zephyrian technology. Humans everywhere were forced to watch their fellow humans being slaughtered with no way to help, or even look away. High Commander Vextal appeared on screen again, as the last human on New Haven died. His crystal body now pulsed with what could only be described as satisfaction. When he spoke, his mental voice carried amusement and contempt. "Your species amuses us greatly," Vextal said directly into every human mind listening. "Consider what you have witnessed today, a demonstration of Zephyrian superiority over your kind. This was merely for our entertainment and your education. Submit to our rule completely, or many more of your worlds will burn exactly like New Haven. You have 7 of your days to surrender your entire species to us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving billions of humans staring at blank screens. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of people crying, screaming, and swearing vengeance. In that moment, something fundamental changed in the human species. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had shown humans exactly what they were capable of, and now humans would show the galaxy what they were capable of in return. The silence after the broadcast lasted only minutes before Earth exploded into action. President Kevin Hayes stood in the emergency command center, watching reports flood in from every human world. People were rioting in the streets, demanding immediate war against the aliens. Military recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Everyone wanted revenge for New Haven. Hayes made the decision that would change human history forever. He activated the Emergency Powers Clause and declared total war against the Zephyrian Empire. But this would not be a normal war with battles and treaties. This would be a war of complete extermination. Every single Zephyrian in the galaxy would die for what they had done. General Paul Carter received the order while commanding the Mars Defense Fleet. He was Admiral Lisa Carter's younger brother, and just as determined as she was. When Hayes appointed him to lead Operation Extinction, Paul felt the weight of human fury settling on his shoulders. His job was simple in concept, but massive in scale. Kill every alien that had participated in the massacre and destroy their entire species. Dr. Nathan Cross worked in Earth's most advanced physics laboratory. When the military came to him asking for new weapons, he did not hesitate. Cross had lost his sister and her family on New Haven. Now he would use his brilliant mind to create tools of revenge. He began designing weapons specifically meant to kill Zephyrians in the most efficient ways possible. The aliens were made of living crystal, so Cross focused on resonance technology. Every crystal had a natural frequency that could make it vibrate. If he could find the right frequency for Zephyrian biology, he could make their bodies shake apart from the inside. He worked 18 hours a day, building prototypes while his assistants tested different sound waves and energy. Patterns Commander Amy Rodriguez led the intelligence division from a secret base on Luna. Her teams intercepted every Zephyrian communication they could find. What they discovered made humans even angrier. The aliens were still broadcasting the New Haven massacre on their homeworld as entertainment. Millions of Zephyrians watched the human deaths like humans might watch a sporting event. Rodriguez learned that the Zephyrians considered the massacre a form of art. They rated different methods of killing humans and discussed which deaths were most amusing. Some aliens were already planning visits to other human worlds to create new entertainment for their people. The recordings of these conversations were played for human leaders, hardening their resolve for complete genocide. Captain Jake Morrison brought the Meridian back to Earth's orbital shipyards for modifications. The research vessel would be transformed into an instrument of war. Cross's resonance weapons were installed along with new armor and faster engines. Morrison watched as peaceful exploration equipment was replaced with devices designed only for killing. The shipyards around Earth worked without stopping. Every human world contributed ships, weapons, and people to the war effort. Factories that once built farming equipment now produced ammunition. Schools became training centers for new soldiers. The entire human civilization focused on one goal: destroying the aliens who had murdered their people. Colonel Rick Palmer discovered something that made the situation even worse. His intelligence teams found Zephyrian broadcasts describing humans as inferior beings who existed only for alien amusement. The aliens had been watching human colonies for years, selecting which ones would provide the best entertainment when they decided to attack. New Haven had been chosen because it had the most children and families. The Zephyrians found it particularly amusing to watch human parents try to protect their offspring before being killed themselves. Palmer shared this information with military commanders, who passed it to their troops. Now every human soldier knew they were fighting beings who enjoyed murdering children. Dr. Helen Brooks worked with xenobiologist Dr. Grace Lee to develop biological weapons. Since the aliens were partly organic despite their crystal appearance, they might be vulnerable to specially designed diseases. Brooks and Lee created pathogens that would attack Zephyrian nervous systems and cause their crystal bodies to decay from within. The biological weapons were tested on captured Zephyrian technology samples. The results exceeded expectations. The alien materials began breaking down within hours of exposure. If this worked on living Zephyrians, entire populations could be eliminated quickly and efficiently. Tech specialist Carl Johnson created computer viruses designed to infiltrate Zephyrian technology. The aliens used crystal-based computing systems that were vulnerable to specific types of digital attacks. Johnson's viruses could make alien ships crash, weapons malfunction, and communication systems fail. These cyber weapons would give human forces a major advantage in battle. Admiral Lisa Carter prepared the largest military fleet in human history. Ships came from every human world to join her armada. Merchant vessels were converted to carry troops and supplies. Civilian craft received weapons and armor. Even luxury passenger ships became part of the war machine. Carter's fleet grew to over 3,000 vessels of all sizes. This represented nearly every space-capable ship humans possessed. The Admiral knew this was humanity's chance to prove they could defend themselves. If they failed, other alien species might decide humans were easy targets. The preparation phase took 6 weeks of constant work. During this time, Zephyrian ships approached several other human colonies. Each time, the aliens broadcast their intentions to massacre more humans for entertainment. But now human defense forces were ready. The first test came at Alpha Centauri colony. Zephyrian ships arrived expecting to find defenseless humans. Instead, they met Morrison's modified Meridian and 12 other vessels equipped with Cross's resonance weapons. The battle lasted only minutes before every alien ship was destroyed. The resonance weapons worked perfectly. Zephyrian crystal hulls shattered like glass when hit by the right frequency waves. Alien crew members were torn apart as their crystalline biology vibrated beyond its structural limits. For the first time since New Haven, humans had killed Zephyrians. General Carter received reports from the Alpha Centauri battle and smiled grimly. The weapons worked and human forces could defeat alien technology. Now it was time to take the war to the enemy. He began planning simultaneous attacks on every known Zephyrian outpost and colony. President Hayes addressed the human species one final time before the offensive began. His words were broadcast to every human world and recorded for history. The aliens wanted to show us their power by murdering our people. Today we begin showing them ours. We will not stop until every Zephyrian in the galaxy is dead. They chose genocide when they killed New Haven. Now they will receive genocide in return. The message ended with footage of the new human war fleet. Thousands of ships filled with angry humans ready to avenge their dead. Cross's weapons hummed with deadly energy, while Johnson's viruses waited to strike alien computers. Brooks and Lee's biological agents sat ready to poison entire Zephyrian worlds. Admiral Carter gave the order that started humanity's war of extermination. All ships begin Operation Extinction. Show no mercy because they showed none to us. Every alien dies today or we keep fighting until they do. The largest military force humans had ever assembled moved towards Zephyrian space carrying death for an entire species. The first strikes against Zephyrian targets began at exactly midnight Earth time. Captain Jake Morrison led 12 ships toward a Zephyrian listening post in the Kepler system. His modified Meridian carried the most advanced resonance weapons Dr. Cross had created. Morrison felt cold satisfaction as he prepared to test these weapons on living aliens. The Zephyrian listening post was a massive crystal structure floating in space near Kepler's fourth planet. It looked beautiful with its glowing surfaces and elegant curves, but Morrison knew it was filled with the same creatures who had laughed while murdering human children. He gave the order to attack without any attempt at communication. Cross's resonance weapons fired invisible waves of energy at specific frequencies. The crystal structure began vibrating as the waves hit it. Morrison watched through his ship's cameras as the alien station started shaking apart. Pieces of crystal broke off and floated away while the main structure cracked like glass. The Zephyrians inside tried to escape in small ships, but Morrison's fleet was ready. Every alien vessel that launched was immediately targeted by resonance beams. The ships shattered in seconds, killing their crews instantly. Morrison felt nothing but satisfaction as he watched the aliens die. The resonance weapons worked better than anyone had hoped. The alien shields that had seemed so powerful during the New Haven massacre were useless against frequency attacks. Crystal technology that looked advanced was actually fragile when hit with the right kind of energy. In 30 minutes, every Zephyrian at the listening post was dead. Lieutenant Colonel Sandra White commanded ground forces attacking a Zephyrian mining colony on a planet called Zerthon. Her Marines landed in dropships equipped with sonic weapons and grenades designed to disrupt crystalline structures. White had lost her husband and 2 children on New Haven, and now she would make the aliens pay. The mining colony had about 5,000 Zephyrian workers and 1,000 guards. White's force numbered only 800 Marines, but they had superior weapons and unlimited hatred. The colonel divided her troops into hunting teams and sent them into the crystal tunnels where the aliens lived and worked. The sonic weapons were devastating against Zephyrian biology. When Marines fired them at aliens, the creatures' crystal bodies began cracking and breaking apart. The aliens screamed in their telepathic voices, filling the minds of nearby humans with their pain and terror. White ordered her Marines to ignore the mental noise and keep killing. The aliens tried to surrender after the first hour of fighting, but White had strict orders to take no prisoners except for high-ranking officers needed for intelligence. Every worker and guard on Zerthon would die. The Marines moved systematically through the tunnels, using their weapons to hunt down every alien they could find. The Zephyrians fought desperately to defend their mining equipment and living areas. Their energy weapons could kill humans instantly, but they had trouble hitting fast-moving targets in the narrow tunnels. White's Marines used guerrilla tactics, striking quickly, and then moving to new positions before the aliens could respond effectively. Dr. Helen Brooks and Dr. Grace Lee deployed their biological weapon on a Zephyrian research station called Mordeth. The pathogen was delivered through the station's air recycling system by a small stealth drone. Once inside, the biological agent began spreading through the telepathic network that connected all Zephyrians on the station. The weapon worked exactly as designed. The pathogen attacked the neural crystalline matrices that allowed Zephyrians to think and communicate. Within hours, aliens throughout the station began losing their ability to control their bodies. Their crystal forms started turning black as the infection spread through their nervous systems. Brooks watched through remote cameras as the aliens died in agony. Their telepathic screams of pain were so intense that they overloaded the station's communication equipment. The doctor felt no sympathy as she observed their suffering. These were the same creatures who had found entertainment in human deaths. The biological weapon spread faster than expected because of the aliens' telepathic connections. Every Zephyrian who tried to help an infected colleague became infected themselves. In 3 days, the entire population of Mordeth was dead, Their crystal bodies crumbled to black dust. Master Sergeant Tony Miller led special operations teams tasked with capturing high-ranking Zephyrian officers alive. These prisoners were needed for interrogation to learn about alien military plans and population centers. Miller's teams used non-lethal sonic weapons to disable alien commanders without killing them. The captured aliens were taken to secret facilities where Dr. Elena Foster conducted interrogations. Foster was a specialist in alien psychology who had studied Zephyrian behavior patterns since first contact. She used a combination of sonic torture and telepathic disruption to break down alien resistance. The interrogations revealed valuable intelligence about Zephyrian society and military structure. The aliens had a rigid hierarchy with specific ranks and responsibilities. More importantly, Foster learned the locations of major Zephyrian population centers and military installations scattered across dozens of star systems. The prisoners also revealed that the New Haven massacre had been planned for months as a form of entertainment. The Zephyrian leadership had selected human colonies based on which ones would provide the most amusing deaths when attacked. This information was shared with human military commanders, further strengthening their resolve for total extermination. After 1 week of initial attacks, the Zephyrian Empire attempted to open diplomatic communications with Earth. High Commander Vextal himself sent a message offering to negotiate compensation for the New Haven massacre and establish peaceful relations between the species. President Hayes received the alien communication while meeting with his military advisors. The Zephyrian leader's telepathic voice seemed less confident than during the original broadcast. Vextal offered to pay humans with advanced technology and rare materials in exchange for ending the attacks on Zephyrian facilities. Hayes recorded his response in the same room where he had watched 7 million humans die. His words were broadcast not only to the Zephyrian Empire, but to every alien civilization that might be listening to galactic communications. The president wanted all species to understand humanity's position clearly. The time for negotiation ended when you murdered our people for entertainment, Hayes said directly into the camera. You chose to show us what your species is capable of when you broadcast the deaths of innocents. Now we are showing the galaxy what humans are capable of when our families are threatened. Your species chose extinction when you killed New Haven. We are simply the instrument delivering that choice. The message continued with footage of destroyed Zephyrian facilities and dead alien bodies. Hayes wanted other species to see that humans could back up their threats with effective action. Any alien civilization considering attacks on human colonies would now know the consequences. The response to Hayes's message was immediate. Zephyrian military forces began mobilizing for war while other alien species started withdrawing from areas near human space. The galaxy was learning that humans were not the weak, peaceful species many had assumed them to be. Morrison received new orders to prepare for larger operations against major Zephyrian targets. The initial strikes had been successful beyond expectations, proving that human weapons could defeat alien technology. Now it was time to escalate the war and begin attacking Zephyrian worlds with significant populations. The intelligence gathered from captured Zephyrians gave humans everything they needed for the next phase of their war. General Paul Carter studied the star map showing 12 major Zephyrian worlds scattered across different systems. Each world held millions of aliens who had cheered while watching human families die. Now those same worlds would burn. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled for the assault on Kethmore, the heavily fortified military world that served as the Zephyrian Empire's main defense headquarters. 200 human ships waited at the edge of the system, while smaller scout vessels reported on alien defenses. The enemy had over 1,000 ships protecting their most important military installation. Captain Jake Morrison had been promoted to admiral after his successful raids on Zephyrian outposts. He now commanded the Vanguard Assault Force with his flagship Meridian, leading 30 of humanity's most advanced warships. Morrison felt the weight of human expectations as he prepared to test their forces against the aliens' strongest defenses. Dr. Nathan Cross's latest weapons filled the human ships with deadly potential. His resonance cannons could now fire concentrated frequency beams across vast distances, capable of shattering entire Zephyrian vessels with single shots. Quantum torpedoes carried warheads that would disrupt alien crystal technology on contact. Most importantly, programmer Alex Turner had created artificial intelligence viruses that could infect and destroy Zephyrian computer systems. The attack on Kethmore began with Turner's cyber weapons. Invisible data streams reached out from human ships and penetrated Zephyrian communication networks. Within minutes, alien coordination began breaking down as their computers turned against them. Ships lost navigation control while defense platforms stopped responding to commands. Morrison led the first wave of attackers, as Zephyrian ships tried desperately to organize a defense. The aliens had superior numbers, but their technology was failing them. Resonance cannons tore through crystal hulls that had seemed invincible during the New Haven massacre. Quantum torpedoes caused alien vessels to simply disintegrate when they exploded. The space battle around Kethmore became the largest in galactic history. Admiral Carter's main fleet joined Morrison's vanguard as more Zephyrian ships arrived from other systems. Energy beams and missile salvos filled the void between planets while crystal fragments from destroyed alien vessels created deadly debris fields. Human ships moved in coordinated formations that the Zephyrians could not counter. Every human captain knew that failure meant more human worlds would suffer, the same fate as New Haven. They fought with desperate determination, while their enemies struggled with malfunctioning equipment and disrupted communications. The turning point came when Turner's viruses reached the main Zephyrian command ship. The massive crystal dreadnought suddenly stopped firing and began drifting helplessly through space. Its weapons systems had been completely taken over by human artificial intelligence, programs that turned the ship's own guns against other Zephyrian vessels. Colonel Rick Palmer coordinated ground invasions across multiple Zephyrian planets while the space battle raged around Kethmore. His target was Vex Prima, the cultural homeworld where billions of Zephyrians lived in crystal cities. Palmer commanded 500,000 human soldiers equipped with the most advanced weapons Earth could provide. The invasion of Vex Prima began with orbital bombardment using Cross's planetary resonance generators. These massive weapons could make entire crystal structures vibrate at lethal frequencies from space. Zephyrian cities began cracking and collapsing as the resonance waves swept across the planet's surface. Palmer's soldiers landed in dropships while the bombardment continued. They found a world in chaos as surviving Zephyrians fled from their destroyed homes. The humans showed no mercy to military or civilian targets. Every alien they encountered was killed, immediately using sonic weapons and crystalline disruption. Grenades. Dr. Elena Foster's psychological warfare broadcast preceded each assault on Zephyrian positions. Speakers mounted on human vehicles played the recorded death screams of previously eliminated Zephyrian populations. The telepathic aliens could not block out these sounds, which drove many of them into panic and confusion. The Zephyrians tried desperately to use their own civilians as human shields when they realized their military forces were being destroyed. They broadcast images of their young and elderly, begging humans to show mercy and spare innocent lives. These broadcasts were analyzed by Dr. Helen Brooks and her xenobiology team. Brooks discovered that the apparent Zephyrian children and elderly were actually artificially created beings designed to manipulate the emotions of other species. The aliens had no natural reproduction cycle, but instead grew specialized individuals in crystal matrices to serve specific purposes. Even their civilians were tools of deception. This revelation was shared with all human forces, eliminating any remaining sympathy for the enemy. Palmer's soldiers increased their killing efficiency as they realized every Zephyrian they encountered was part of the same system that had murdered human families for entertainment. As Zephyrian resistance crumbled across multiple worlds, scattered alien fleets attempted to flee toward unknown regions of space. Commander Amy Rodriguez's intelligence network had anticipated this possibility and deployed long-range hunter-killer squadrons to intercept any escape attempts. Captain Ben Harper commanded one of these pursuit squadrons as it chased fleeing Zephyrian ships toward the galactic rim. His orders were simple: ensure no aliens survive to rebuild their civilization or seek revenge against humanity. Every Zephyrian ship that tried to escape would be hunted down and destroyed. Captain Lisa Thompson led another pursuit force tracking aliens who had fled toward unexplored star systems. Her ships carried enough supplies for extended operations far from human space. Thompson's crews understood they might spend months hunting the last surviving Zephyrians through distant regions of the galaxy. The systematic destruction of Zephyrian civilization continued for weeks as human forces moved from world to world. Each planet presented new challenges, but the outcome was always the same. Crystal cities were reduced to rubble while their inhabitants were eliminated without exception. Admiral Morrison established orbital platforms around conquered Zephyrian worlds to ensure no survivors remained hidden. These stations used deep penetration scanners to detect any life signs on planetary surfaces. When survivors were found, bombardment teams would eliminate them from orbit using precision strikes. The efficiency of human military operations impressed other alien civilizations that monitored the conflict. Species that had considered humans weak and primitive now watched in fear as an entire advanced empire was systematically exterminated by the supposedly inferior beings from Earth. High Commander Vextal sent increasingly desperate messages to other alien governments, begging for military assistance against the human onslaught. No species responded to his pleas. They had all seen what happened to those who opposed humanity, and none wanted to share the Zephyrians' fate. General Carter received reports from every front showing the same pattern of success. Human forces were winning every engagement while alien resistance grew weaker with each passing day. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing under the weight of humanity's relentless assault. The end was approaching rapidly, as the last major Zephyrian strongholds fell to human attacks. Soon only the alien homeworld would remain, where High Commander Vexatal waited with the final remnants of his dying species. 6 months had passed since the New Haven massacre, and humanity stood ready to complete their mission of total extermination. High Commander Vextal had retreated to the Zephyrian throne world called Etmos, with the last survivors of his species. Intelligence reports indicated approximately 50,000 aliens remained alive in the crystal palaces that covered the planet's surface. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the final assault from his flagship, Retribution, a massive vessel built specifically for this moment. The ship carried Dr. Nathan Cross's ultimate weapon, a planetary resonance generator powerful enough to kill every Zephyrian on Etmos simultaneously. The device would cause all crystal formations on the planet to vibrate at lethal frequencies, ensuring the aliens experienced maximum suffering before death. President Kevin Hayes prepared to address the galaxy one final time before the last battle began. He stood in the same room where he had watched 7 million humans die, surrounded by monitors showing the approaching human fleet. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations had requested permission to observe humanity's final solution to the Zephyrian problem. Today marks the end of a species that chose to murder innocent families for entertainment, Hayes said as cameras broadcast his words across known space. Let this serve as a permanent lesson to any civilization that considers humanity weak or defenseless. We do not forgive those who slaughter our children. We do not forget those who laugh at our pain. We do not show mercy to those who show none to us. The transmission included footage of destroyed Zephyrian worlds and the bodies of dead aliens floating in space. Hayes wanted every species in the galaxy to understand what happened to those who threatened human families. Other civilizations that had been planning aggressive actions against human colonies quietly abandoned those plans after seeing the broadcast. Morrison's fleet approached Atmos slowly, savoring this final moment of their campaign. The planet was beautiful with its towering crystal spires and glowing cities, but the Admiral felt no sympathy for its inhabitants. These were the same beings who had cheered while watching human children die. Their beauty meant nothing compared to their evil. The Zephyrian defense fleet was pathetic compared to what had once protected their military worlds. Only a few dozen ships remained to guard their homeworld, and most of those were damaged survivors from previous battles. High Commander Vextal's forces were outnumbered 50-1 by the approaching human armada. General Paul Carter coordinated the ground assault from his command ship, while Morrison prepared the orbital bombardment. Carter's forces included veterans from every previous battle against the Zephyrians. These soldiers had seen their enemies' cruelty firsthand and felt no hesitation about completing the extermination. The final battle began at dawn on Etmos as human ships engaged the remaining Zephyrian defenders. The alien vessels fought desperately, but their crystal hulls shattered easily under human resonance weapons. Within an hour, every Zephyrian ship had been destroyed and the way was clear for the planetary assault. Morrison activated Cross's ultimate weapon as the last alien defender exploded. The planetary resonance generator began sending deadly frequencies down to Atmos' surface, Every crystal structure on the planet started vibrating as the waves penetrated deep into the ground where the aliens lived. High Commander Vextal felt his palace beginning to shake and knew the end had come. He tried to broadcast a final message of surrender, offering to serve humanity in exchange for his life. Morrison received the transmission and deleted it without listening. The time for surrender had passed when the aliens murdered New Haven. Dr. Helen Brooks monitored the weapon's effects from the Retribution's science station. The resonance frequencies were designed to kill slowly, ensuring the Zephyrians experienced the same terror their human victims had felt. Brooks watched with satisfaction as alien life signs began disappearing across the planet's surface. The crystal cities of Etmos cracked and crumbled as the resonance waves grew stronger. Zephyrian civilians fled from their collapsing homes only to find that the frequencies were affecting their bodies as well. Their crystalline biology began breaking down as the weapon reached optimal power levels. Major Susan Clark led ground forces into the crystal catacombs beneath the capital city where thousands of aliens had taken shelter. Her Marines used sonic weapons to hunt down survivors in the underground tunnels. Clark had lost her entire family on New Haven and personally ensured that every alien she found died slowly and painfully. Captain Roy Davis commanded another assault team attacking the main palace where High Commander Vextal waited with his final guards. The aliens fought desperately in their last stronghold, but human weapons cut through their defenses easily. Davis's soldiers showed no mercy as they cleared room after room of crystal chambers. The hunting continued for 18 hours as human forces systematically eliminated every Zephyrian on Etmos. Dr. Brooks used her knowledge of alien biology to ensure that High Commander Vexital died last, subjected to the same terror his species had inflicted on human families. The alien leader's telepathic screams of agony were recorded for historical purposes. Morrison stood on the Retribution's bridge watching the final moments of the Zephyrian species. The last life signs on his sensors flickered and went dark as the resonance weapon completed its work. Every crystal on the planet had been reduced to dust along with the beings who had lived inside them. The Zephyrian Empire is extinct, Morrison broadcast to the human fleet and the listening galaxy. Justice for New Haven is complete. His transmission included footage of the dead planet and the ceremonial destruction of Zephyrian artwork and cultural artifacts that had been recovered from other worlds. The celebration across human space was immediate and overwhelming. Billions of people who had watched their fellow humans die now cheered as their killers were completely eliminated. Memorial services were held on every human world to honor the 7 million victims whose deaths had been avenged. 1 year later, humanity had become the galaxy's dominant military power. The complete and systematic destruction of an entire advanced species served as both warning and demonstration of human capabilities when their families were threatened. Other alien civilizations began approaching Earth with treaties of friendship and non-aggression. Having witnessed what happened to those who harmed humanity, Dr. Cross's research into captured Zephyrian technology advanced human science by centuries, while Dr. Brooks's biological warfare programs provided defenses against future alien threats. The weapons developed during the extermination campaign made human forces superior to any potential enemy in known space. President Hayes dedicated the monument to human resolve, built from the crystallized remains of the Zephyrian homeworld. His words at the ceremony were broadcast across human space and recorded for future generations. They thought our compassion was weakness, and our mercy was vulnerability. They learned that human kindness, once betrayed, becomes absolute determination. We are the children of Earth, and we remember our own. Morrison, now Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest battle station, gazing out at the stars. Other alien species watched nervously as humanity continued expanding, now knowing that the beings they had once considered soft and emotional possessed the will to completely erase threats to their survival. His final thought reflected humanity's transformation from peaceful explorers to galactic enforcers. 7 million of our people died to teach the universe a lesson about human nature. Their sacrifice ensures that no alien species will ever again mistake human kindness for human weakness. The galaxy now knows what happens to those who harm our families.
Sanctuary Station floated in the cold darkness between stars. It was old and tired. held together by desperate repairs and the prayers of those who lived inside its metal walls. 12,000 souls called this place home. They came from a dozen different worlds, speaking languages that their translation devices struggled to understand. They were Torani, with gray skin and gentle eyes. They were Kelvari with 4 arms and voices like wind through hollow reeds. They were Veth and Morani and others whose worlds had burned when the Dominion came. Commander Veleth stood at the observation window of the command center and watched the stars. She was Torani, tall and thin, with silver hair that she kept short because there was no time for vanity anymore. She had been a scientist once, long ago, before the Dominion destroyed her research station and everyone she loved. Now she commanded this floating graveyard of hope, and she did her best to keep its people alive for one more day. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. She did not turn around because she already knew who it was. Roan was young for a Kelvari, barely 30 cycles old, and he walked with the nervous energy of someone who had not yet learned that some problems could not be solved by moving faster. "Commander," he said, and his voice carried the weight of terrible news. Veleth closed her eyes for a moment. She had heard that tone before, many times, and it never brought anything good. "Tell me," she said. "Dominion scout ships, 3 of them. They found us 6 hours ago and jumped to hyperspace before our sensors could track them." Roan paused, and when he spoke again his voice was smaller. "They will bring the fleet. Standard protocol. 16 hours, maybe less." Veleth opened her eyes and looked at the stars again. Somewhere out there, Dominion warships were already preparing to jump. They would come with overwhelming force, because the Dominion never took chances. They would demand surrender and then they would kill anyone who resisted and enslave everyone who did not. This was how it always happened. This was how 100 worlds had fallen. "Sound the alert," she said quietly. "Begin evacuation protocols for non-essential personnel. Move families to the inner sections where the hull is strongest." Roan hesitated. "Commander, our escape pods cannot outrun Dominion interceptors. If we launch them, they will simply be captured in open space." "I know." Veleth finally turned to face him. Her eyes were calm in a way that frightened him. "But it gives people something to do. Something to focus on. That matters more than you might think." The next hour was chaos. Alarms echoed through the station's corridors, and people ran in every direction. Some grabbed their children and their most precious belongings and hurried toward the designated shelter zones. Others stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. A few simply sat down where they were and began to cry. Veleth walked through it all with steady steps. She spoke to those who needed comfort and gave orders to those who needed purpose. She helped an elderly Morani find his medication and carried a lost Veth child back to her parents. She did these small things because they were all she could do, and because kindness still mattered, even at the end of everything. In the lower sections of the station, a Torani woman named Kethi held her daughter close. The girl was called Sarah, and she was 7 years old with curious eyes and a smile that could light up even the darkest corridors. Sarah did not fully understand what was happening, but she understood that the adults were afraid, and that frightened her more than anything else. "Mother," she whispered, "are we going to die?" Kethi stroked her daughter's hair and tried to find words that would not be lies. She had promised herself long ago that she would never lie to Sarah, but the truth was too heavy for a child to carry. "I do not know," she finally said, "but I know that I love you, and I will stay with you no matter what happens." Sarah thought about this for a moment. "Will someone come to help us?" Kethi did not answer. She simply held her daughter tighter and prayed to gods she no longer believed in. In the command center, Veleth worked with her small team to prepare what defenses they had. Their weapons were old and weak, designed to fight off pirates and debris, not warships. Their shields could barely stop a meteorite, let alone military-grade plasma. They had no fighters, no missiles, nothing that could threaten a Dominion fleet. But Veleth armed her people anyway. She diverted power from non-essential systems to the shield generators. She positioned volunteers at every airlock, with whatever weapons they could find. She knew it was meaningless, but she refused to simply wait for death. Her people would face the end on their feet, not on their knees. Roan approached her with a datapad in his upper hands. "Commander, I found something strange in the long-range sensor logs." Veleth did not look up from her console. "Strange how?" "A signal. Very faint, buried in the background radiation." "It is not Dominion. It is not any species in our database." He hesitated. "I almost missed it completely. Our systems barely recognized it as artificial." Now Veleth looked up. "Show me." Roan handed her the datapad. The signal was indeed faint, little more than a whisper against the noise of the universe. But there was a pattern to it. A structure that could only be intentional. The translation systems had managed to decode one fragment, a phrase that repeated over and over. "Hold your position. Help is coming." Veleth stared at the words for a long time. Then she shook her head and handed the datapad back to Roan. "Ghost signal," she said. "An echo from some dead civilization's automated beacon. The galaxy is full of them. But what if it is real? What if someone is actually coming?" "No one is coming, Roan." Veleth returned to her work, her voice flat and tired. "No one has ever come. The great powers that once protected the weak are gone. The Dominion rules half the galaxy, and the other half hides in shadows hoping to be overlooked. We broadcast distress signals for 3 years, and no one answered. No one will answer now." Roan wanted to argue, but he could not find the words. He looked at the datapad one more time, at that strange message from the void, and he wondered who had sent it. He wondered if somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, someone had heard their cries for help. But hope was a dangerous thing in times like these. Hope made you weak. Hope made you believe that tomorrow might be better. And when tomorrow came with fire and death, hope made the end hurt even more. Roan deleted the signal from the log and returned to his duties. There was work to be done, and very little time to do it. 16 hours. That was all they had. 16 hours until the Dominion arrived, and Sanctuary Station became another name on the long list of places that no longer existed. Veleth stood alone at the observation window and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, death was coming for them. And no matter how hard she tried, she could not stop it. She could only wait. The hours passed like cold water dripping through cracks in stone. Each minute felt longer than the one before, stretched thin by fear and anticipation. The people of Sanctuary Station moved through their routines with hollow eyes and trembling hands. They hugged their families and said things they should have said long ago. They forgave old grudges and made peace with old enemies. They did all the things that people do when they know the end is near. Veleth did not sleep. She stood at her post in the command center and watched the sensor displays, waiting for the moment when death would appear on her screens. Her officers worked around her in tense silence, checking systems that did not need checking and running simulations that always ended the same way. No one spoke about the future because there was no future to speak about. In the shelter zones, families huddled together in the dim emergency lighting. The station had reduced power to everything except essential systems, and the corridors were cold and dark. Children asked questions that their parents could not answer. Why is this happening? What did we do wrong? Why does no one help us? Sierra sat with her mother in a corner of Shelter Zone 7. She had brought her favorite toy, a small stuffed animal that looked like a creature from her homeworld. The creature had been called a Villani, and they had gone extinct when the Dominion burned her planet. Now this toy was the only Villani left in the universe, and Sarah held it tight against her chest. "Mother," she said quietly, "I am scared." Kethy pulled her daughter close. "I know, little one. I am scared too. Is being scared bad?" Kethy thought about this question for a moment. "No," she said finally. "Being scared means you understand that something dangerous is happening. It means you are paying attention. The only time being scared is bad is when it stops you from doing what needs to be done. What needs to be done? Being brave, taking care of each other, remembering that we are not alone." Kethy kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Can you be brave for me?" Sarah nodded, though her eyes were still wet with tears. "I will try." 8 hours remained when Roan discovered something that made his blood run cold. He checked the readings 3 times, hoping he was wrong, but the sensors did not lie. He walked to where Velith stood and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, they are here." The Dominion fleet just emerged from hyperspace. Velith turned sharply. "That is impossible. They should not arrive for another 8 hours. They must have pushed their engines beyond safe limits. They wanted to catch us before we could prepare." Roan's hands trembled as he pointed to the display. 23 warships, 3 carrier class, 8 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers. They have enough firepower to crack a planet. Velith looked at the display and felt something cold settle into her chest. She had known this moment was coming, but seeing it made everything real in a way that imagination could not capture. 23 warships against 1 broken station. It was not a battle. It was an execution. How long until they reach weapons range? 40 minutes, maybe less if they accelerate. Velith nodded slowly. She had 40 minutes to prepare her people for something that could not be prepared for. She had 40 minutes to say goodbye to 12,000 souls who had trusted her to keep them safe. She activated the station-wide communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor and every shelter zone, reaching every ear on Sanctuary Station. "This is Commander Velith. The Dominion fleet has arrived. They will be in weapons range within the hour." She paused, searching for words that might bring some comfort. "I know many of you are afraid. I am afraid too. But I want you to know that it has been my greatest honor to serve as your commander. You are refugees, yes. You are survivors, but more than that, you are proof that kindness and hope can exist even in the darkest times. The Dominion may take our lives today, but they cannot take what we have built together. They cannot take our courage or our love for one another. Whatever happens in the next hour, I want you to remember that you are not alone. We face this together. As we have faced everything together." She ended the transmission and stood in silence. Around her, the officers of the command center worked with renewed determination. Some had tears on their faces, but their hands were steady. They would do their duty until the very end. The Dominion fleet advanced slowly. They did not hurry, because there was no need to hurry. Their prey was trapped and helpless, and they wanted to savor the moment. At the center of the formation, aboard the flagship called Eternal Wrath, Warlord Kreth watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Kreth was old for a Dominion officer, nearly 200 cycles, and he had spent most of those cycles bringing death to those who defied his empire. He was tall and broad, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like chips of black ice. He had conquered 17 worlds and enslaved millions. He had burned libraries and temples and hospitals. He had done things that would make lesser beings weep, and he had never lost a moment of sleep over any of it. "Open a channel to the station," he commanded. His communications officer obeyed, and Kreth leaned forward to speak. His voice was smooth and cruel, like silk wrapped around a blade. "Attention, Sanctuary Station. This is Warlord Kreth of the Dominion Empire. You have been found guilty of harboring fugitives from Imperial justice. The sentence is death. However, I am feeling generous today. If you surrender immediately and open your airlocks, I will permit some of you to live as slaves. You will serve the Empire with your labor and your bodies, and in time, your children may earn the right to be treated as almost equal to real citizens." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "This is my only offer. You have 10 minutes to accept. If you refuse, I will destroy your station piece by piece, and I will make certain that the dying takes a very long time." The transmission ended, and silence filled the command center. Velith looked at her officers, at the fear and the anger and the desperate hope in their eyes. She thought about the children in the shelter zones, about Sierra and her stuffed Villani, about all the futures that would never happen if she made the wrong choice. But there was no right choice. There was only surrender or death, and Velith knew what the Dominion did to slaves. She knew about the mines where people worked until their bodies broke. She knew about the breeding facilities and the experimentation labs. She knew that death was sometimes a mercy. No response, she said quietly. We will not dignify that offer with a response. Roan nodded, and something like pride flickered in his eyes. Understood, Commander. They waited in silence as the minutes ticked away. The Dominion fleet grew larger on the displays, close enough now that their individual ships could be distinguished. Each one was a monument to cruelty, bristling with weapons designed to cause maximum suffering. 10 minutes passed. No response was sent. Kreth smiled aboard his flagship. He had expected nothing less. Prey always struggled, always fought, always believed that somehow they might survive. It made the killing more enjoyable. All ships, he commanded, begin the attack. Take your time. I want them to suffer. The Dominion fleet opened fire, and Sanctuary Station shuddered under the first wave of impacts. Alarms screamed, lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a hull breach began venting atmosphere into the void. The end had begun. And then, in the darkness of space, something impossible happened. Space tore itself apart. There was no other way to describe what happened. One moment, there was only empty void. And the next moment, there was a wound in reality itself. It was not a hyperspace window, not the familiar blue shimmer that accompanied faster-than-light travel. This was something else entirely, a darkness deeper than the space between galaxies, edged with light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Every sensor on every ship screamed warnings. Every screen flickered with data that made no sense. Even Kreth, who had seen 1,000 battles and feared nothing in the known universe, felt something cold crawl up his spine. And then, from the heart of that impossible darkness, a ship emerged. It was enormous, larger than the Dominion flagship by a factor of 3. Its hull was angular and aggressive, covered in armor plates that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon arrays lined its surface like teeth in the mouth of some ancient predator, and running lights glowed along its length with steady, patient menace. The ship moved with impossible grace for something so massive. It slid through the wound in space like a beast emerging from deep water, and behind it, the darkness sealed itself and vanished as if it had never existed. On Sanctuary Station, Roan stared at his displays with his mouth hanging open. His 4 hands had frozen over his console, unable to process what he was seeing. "Commander," he whispered. "Commander, what is that?" Veleth did not answer. She could not answer. She simply stared at the image on the main screen, at this impossible vessel that had appeared from nothing. And she felt something she had not felt in years: hope. The ship's hull bore markings in a language that no one on the station recognized. Angular letters, sharp and precise, spelling out words that the translation systems struggled to interpret. But beneath those strange letters, there was a translation in standard galactic script, as if the builders of this vessel had known that others would need to read it. USS Resolute. United Earth Navy. Humans, Veleth breathed. That is a human warship. Roan shook his head in confusion. Humans? But humans are extinct. They were a primitive species on the edge of known space. The Dominion conquered their world 2 centuries ago. Apparently not. Veleth felt a strange laugh building in her chest. Something between joy and hysteria. Apparently not. Aboard the Dominion flagship, Kreth's mood had shifted from confidence to confusion to something approaching concern. His officers shouted reports at him, each one more alarming than the last. The unknown vessel was massive. Its energy signatures were off the scale. Its weapons systems were like nothing in any Dominion database. "Identify that ship," Kreth commanded. Now, his tactical officer worked frantically at his console. "Unknown design, my lord. Unknown power source. Unknown propulsion system. Unknown weapons configuration." His voice rose with each word. "We have no data on this vessel at all. It is as if it appeared from outside known space." "Humans?" Kreth scoffed. "That is what the marking says. But humans were conquered generations ago. They were barely capable of spaceflight when we found them. Perhaps they were hiding, my lord. Perhaps they were building in secret." Kreth opened his mouth to respond. But before he could speak, his communications officer interrupted. "My lord, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from the unknown vessel. Put it through." The main screen of the Dominion flagship flickered, and a face appeared. It was a human face, male, with dark hair cut short, and eyes the color of storm clouds. The human wore a uniform of deep blue with silver markings on the collar and shoulders. He sat in a command chair surrounded by displays and officers, and he looked at Kreth with an expression of calm, almost casual authority. "This is Captain Daniel Vance of the United Earth Navy vessel Resolute," the human said. His voice was steady and unhurried, as if he had all the time in the universe. "We received a distress signal from Sanctuary Station approximately 3 years ago. We apologize for the delay in responding. We had to come a very long way." Kreth recovered his composure quickly. He had faced strange enemies before. This was simply one more. Human. "Your species was supposed to be extinct. How did you survive?" Captain Vance smiled slightly. "We are very good at surviving. It is something of a specialty for our kind, but that is not why I am calling." His expression hardened, and his voice dropped to something colder. "You have attacked a refugee station under the protection of the United Earth Navy. You have threatened innocent civilians with death and slavery. This is unacceptable. Under your protection?" Kreth laughed. "I see no protection here. I see one ship against 23. The mathematics are simple, human. You cannot win." "That is a common misunderstanding about mathematics," Vance replied. "It assumes that all variables are equal. They are not." He leaned forward slightly. "You have 60 seconds to withdraw your fleet from this system. If you comply, you will be permitted to leave peacefully. If you do not comply, we will remove you. This is your only warning." Kreth stared at the screen for a moment, then burst into genuine laughter. "One ship threatens a Dominion battle fleet? You are either brave or insane. Human. Perhaps both." He gestured to his weapons officer. "All ships. Ignore the station for now. Focus all firepower on the human vessel. Destroy it." "Very well," Captain Vance said quietly. "You have made your choice." The transmission ended. The Dominion fleet pivoted with practiced coordination. 23 warships turned their weapons toward the lone human vessel and opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams and missile salvos streaked across the void, converging on the Resolute from every direction. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. On Sanctuary Station, Velith watched the attack unfold with her heart in her throat. She had allowed herself to hope, foolishly, desperately, and now she would watch that hope die in a storm of fire. But the Resolute did not die. The ship moved. Not desperately, not frantically, but smoothly, deliberately, like a dancer stepping through choreographed motions. Some attacks missed entirely, others struck the hull and simply vanished, absorbed by some kind of shielding technology that the Dominion had never encountered. And then, the Resolute fired back. Its weapons were unlike anything Velith had ever seen. Beams of brilliant white light lanced out from the hull, each one finding its target with perfect precision. The first struck a Dominion destroyer and passed through its shields as if they did not exist. The second hit another destroyer with the same result. Both ships exploded in blossoms of fire and debris. 6 seconds. 2 warships destroyed. The Resolute kept firing. It moved through the Dominion formation like a predator through a herd of prey. And everywhere it went, death followed. Its weapons never missed. Its shields never faltered. It shrugged off attacks that would have vaporized any other vessel in the known galaxy. On the Dominion flagship, panic had replaced confidence. Officers shouted conflicting orders. Damage reports flooded in from every ship in the fleet. Kreth watched his tactical display with growing horror as his warships vanished one by one, reduced to expanding clouds of wreckage. "Fall back," he commanded. "All ships, fall back. Regroup at the system's edge." But the Resolute was faster. It pursued the retreating Dominion ships with relentless efficiency, cutting them down before they could escape. One by one, the warships that had come to bring death found death instead. In 12 minutes, it was over. 14 Dominion warships destroyed. 9 more attempting to flee. Their engines pushed beyond safe limits. Their crews praying to whatever gods they believed in. The Resolute let none of them escape. When the last Dominion vessel exploded and its debris scattered across the void, Captain Vance opened a new channel. His voice reached every speaker on Sanctuary Station. Calm and reassuring. Sanctuary Station, this is Resolute. Hostile forces have been neutralized. Do you require medical or engineering assistance? Veleth stood in the command center, surrounded by officers who were weeping openly. She looked at the tactical display, at the field of debris that had once been a Dominion battle fleet, and she realized that she was crying too. Yes, she whispered into the communication channel. Yes, we require assistance. We require everything you can give. Understood. Vance replied. Hold your position. We are on our way. Somewhere in the shelter zones, a little girl named Sira looked up at her mother with wonder in her eyes. Someone came, she said. Mother, someone actually came. Kethy held her daughter close and let the tears flow freely down her face. Yes, little one. Someone came. For the first time in 3 years, the people of Sanctuary Station allowed themselves to believe that tomorrow might actually arrive. The debris field stretched across 300,000 kilometers of space. Twisted metal and shattered hulls drifted in the silence. All that remained of the mighty Dominion fleet that had come to bring death to Sanctuary Station. Here and there, small fires still burned where oxygen had not yet escaped into the void. Emergency beacons pulsed weakly from escape pods. But there would be no rescue for those who had served Warlord Kreth. The Resolute moved through this graveyard with careful grace, its sensors scanning for any threat that might remain. There were none. The battle had been thorough, clinical, absolute. 23 warships had entered this system with confidence and cruelty. None had left. On Sanctuary Station, the people emerged from their shelter zones with hesitant steps and disbelieving eyes. They gathered at the observation windows and stared at the debris field, at the proof that the impossible had actually happened. Some wept, some laughed, some simply stood in silence, unable to process what they were seeing. Veleth remained in the command center, coordinating with her officers to assess the damage to the station. It was significant, but not catastrophic. Several hull breaches had been sealed by emergency systems. Power fluctuations had caused failures in non-essential areas. A few dozen people had been injured. But the medical teams reported no fatalities. No fatalities. After everything they had faced, after the attack that should have killed them all, no one had died. Commander, Roan said softly. The human ship is hailing us again. Veleth nodded and accepted the transmission. Captain Vance appeared on the screen, his expression warm and concerned. Behind him, she could see his bridge crew working at their stations with quiet efficiency. Commander Veleth, he said. My medical teams are standing by to assist with your wounded. We also have engineering crews ready to help repair critical systems. With your permission, I would like to send a delegation to your station to coordinate relief efforts. Veleth found herself smiling despite everything. Permission granted, Captain. And may I say, on behalf of everyone aboard this station, thank you. You saved our lives. Vance nodded solemnly. We were glad to help. That is why we came. He paused for a moment. I should warn you, Commander. My crew will look different from most species you have encountered. Humans come in many variations. We hope this will not cause any discomfort. Captain, you could have tentacles and breathe fire and we would welcome you with open arms. You saved us from the Dominion. Nothing else matters. Vance laughed, a warm sound that made Veleth like him even more. No tentacles, I am afraid. But I appreciate the sentiment. Our shuttle will arrive in 15 minutes. The transmission ended, and Veleth turned to her officers. Prepare the main docking bay for their arrival. I want honor guards and a proper welcome. These humans have earned our respect. 15 minutes later, Veleth stood at the entrance to Docking Bay 4 with Roan beside her. Behind them, a small crowd of station residents had gathered, unable to stay away from this historic moment. Children peeked around their parents' legs with wide eyes. Elderly survivors who had lost everything stood straight and proud, determined to show their gratitude with dignity. The human shuttle entered the bay with smooth precision. It was smaller than Velith had expected, angular like its parent vessel, but elegant in its simplicity. The engines powered down, and a ramp descended from the craft's underside. 3 figures emerged. The first was Captain Daniel Vance himself. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and a confident stride. His uniform was crisp and perfect, and he moved with the easy authority of someone accustomed to command. His face was kind but serious, marked by lines that suggested he had seen much and forgotten nothing. Beside him walked a woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight knot. Her uniform bore slightly different markings, and her eyes swept the docking bay with professional alertness. This was Commander Lisa Cortez, the ship's executive officer, and she carried herself like a soldier who had fought many battles. The third figure was a man of shorter stature, with gentle features and calm eyes. He carried a medical kit in one hand and wore the insignia of a healer on his collar. This was Dr. Nathan Park, Chief Medical Officer of the Resolute, and his expression radiated compassion. Velith stepped forward to meet them. She had prepared a formal speech, words of gratitude and diplomatic welcome. But when she opened her mouth, something different came out. "How?" she asked simply. "How did you do that?" The Dominion fleet was the most powerful force in this sector. They have conquered worlds. They have destroyed civilizations, and you destroyed them in minutes. How is that possible? Vance smiled slightly. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. The story is long, and your people deserve to hear it too. But there are matters of security that must be considered first. Velith nodded and led them to a small conference room off the main corridor. Roan joined them, along with 2 of Velith's most trusted advisors. When the door closed and they were alone, Vance began to speak. 200 years ago, he said, humanity was young. We had just begun to explore beyond our home system when we detected signals from other civilizations. We were excited. We thought we were joining a community of peaceful explorers. We were wrong. He paused, and something dark flickered in his eyes. We learned very quickly that the galaxy was not a friendly place. We learned about the Dominion and their empire of slaves. We learned about the great powers that had once stood against them and fallen. We learned that species like ours, young and weak and naive, were seen as nothing more than resources to be harvested. Commander Cortez picked up the narrative. We had a choice. We could reveal ourselves and hope for mercy, knowing that mercy was unlikely. We could hide and pray that no one found us. Or we could use the time we had to become something that no one would dare threaten. Her voice hardened. We chose the third option. For 2 centuries, Vance continued, humanity worked in secret. We developed technology that the rest of the galaxy had never imagined. We built ships and weapons and defenses that could stand against anything the Dominion could field. We trained our people for war while hoping we would never have to fight. And we waited. Waited for what? Roan asked. For the right moment. Vance looked directly at Velith. We received your distress signal 3 years ago. We had been monitoring galactic communications for decades, listening for exactly this kind of call. People in danger. People who needed help. People who had no one else to turn to. But you took 3 years to respond, Velith said. Why? Distance. Your station is very far from our home. Even with our advanced propulsion systems, the journey took time, but we came as fast as we could. Vance leaned forward. Commander, I want you to understand something. We did not develop this technology to conquer. We did not build these weapons to create our own empire. We did it so that, when we heard someone crying for help, we would be able to answer. Velith felt tears threatening to fall again. Why? Why would you do all of this for strangers? We are nothing to you. We have nothing to offer. You are people, Vance said simply. You are living beings who deserve to be safe. That is enough. That has always been enough. He reached out and gently touched her arm. Humanity learned long ago that the measure of a civilization is not its power or its wealth. It is how that civilization treats those who cannot protect themselves. We chose to be protectors. We chose to be the ones who answer when no one else will. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Dr. Park spoke for the first time, his voice soft and warm. "Commander, I would very much like to help your wounded now, if that is acceptable. We have medical technology that may be able to treat injuries your systems cannot, and my team has brought supplies, food, medicine, everything we could carry." Velith nodded, unable to speak. She led them out of the conference room and into the corridors of the station, where her people waited with hope in their eyes. The humans had come. After centuries of darkness, after years of despair, after countless prayers that went unanswered, someone had finally heard their call, and everything was about to change. The next several hours transformed Sanctuary Station into something it had not been in years, a place of hope. Human medical teams moved through the corridors with quiet efficiency, treating wounds that the station's limited facilities could not handle. Human engineers worked alongside Kelvari and Torani technicians to repair damaged systems. Human supply officers distributed food and medicine and clothing to people who had grown accustomed to doing without. Velith walked through it all in a kind of dream. Everywhere she looked, she saw her people smiling. Children laughed as they explored the strange devices the humans had brought. Elderly survivors wept with joy as pain they had lived with for years vanished under the care of human doctors. Even the most hardened skeptics, those who had stopped believing in anything good, found themselves unable to resist the warmth that the newcomers radiated. In the main medical bay, Dr. Nathan Park worked with gentle hands and a calming voice. He treated burns and fractures and illnesses that had gone untended for too long. He spoke softly to each patient, learning their names and their stories, making them feel seen in ways they had almost forgotten were possible. A small gray hand tugged at his sleeve. He looked down to find a young Torani girl staring up at him with enormous, curious eyes. She was maybe 7 years old, with silver hair like spun moonlight and a worn stuffed animal clutched tightly in her arms. "Hello there," Park said, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "What is your name?" "Sira," the girl said. "My mother said I should not bother you, but I wanted to ask you something." "You are not bothering me at all. What did you want to ask?" Sira hesitated, gathering her courage. "Are you really from a place called Earth?" Park smiled. "I am. We all are. Earth is our home. Far away from here. Is it beautiful?" The question hit Park harder than he expected. He thought about Earth, about the world his species had nearly destroyed with war and pollution and greed. He thought about the generations of struggle to heal what they had broken. He thought about the blue oceans that sparkled under golden sunlight, and the forests that had slowly returned to lands once scarred by industry. He thought about mountains capped with snow and deserts painted in shades of red and orange and gold. "Yes," he said softly. "It is the most beautiful place in the universe. And someday, if you want, we will show it to you." Sarah's eyes widened. "Really? I could go there? When this is all over, when the galaxy is safe again, I think there will be many exchanges between our peoples. Human children will visit Torani worlds, and Torani children will visit Earth. You will see things you cannot imagine now." He reached out and gently patted the stuffed animal in her arms. "What is this creature called?" "See first. A Villani. They lived on my homeworld before the Dominion came. Now, they are all gone. This is the only one left." Park looked at the worn toy with new understanding. "Then we must take very good care of it. Things that are the last of their kind are precious beyond measure." Sira nodded solemnly. "I will protect it forever. I believe you will." Kethy appeared behind her daughter, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude. "I am so sorry, Doctor. She was supposed to stay in the shelter zone. Please do not apologize. Sarah and I were having a wonderful conversation." Park stood and offered Kethy a warm smile. "You have a remarkable daughter. Her curiosity is a gift." Kethy's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you for everything. I did not believe anyone would come for us. I had stopped hoping. Hope is difficult to maintain in dark times. But sometimes, when hope seems most impossible, that is when help arrives. Park placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You are safe now. We will make sure of that. In the command center, Veleth sat with Captain Vance, in the same conference room where they had spoken before. The urgency had faded, replaced by a quieter conversation between two leaders who were beginning to understand each other. What happens now? Veleth asked. You saved us today, but the Dominion will not forget this. When they learn what happened here, they will send more ships. They will come in greater numbers. They will want revenge. Vance nodded thoughtfully. They will. But they will find that we are ready for them. The Resolute is just one ship in a very large fleet. Humanity has been preparing for this moment for 200 years. We have vessels stationed throughout the galaxy, waiting for the signal to reveal themselves. How many ships? Enough. Vance met her eyes directly. Enough to make the Dominion think twice before attacking anyone under our protection. Enough to change the balance of power in this galaxy forever. Veleth leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the implications. You have been watching. All this time, you have been watching the galaxy suffer. And you did nothing. We were not ready. Vance's voice carried a weight of regret. We knew that if we revealed ourselves too soon, the Dominion would destroy us before we could make a difference. We needed time to grow strong enough to matter. Every day we waited, people died. We know this. We carry that knowledge with us always. He paused. But we are ready now. And we will not wait any longer. What do you intend to do? Everything. Vance stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at the stars. We will answer every distress call. We will protect every refugee. We will stand between the weak and those who would prey upon them. And when the Dominion comes for us, we will teach them that there are some things in this universe that cannot be conquered. Veleth joined him at the window. That sounds like a war. Perhaps, or perhaps it sounds like justice. The Dominion has ruled through fear for too long. They have destroyed civilizations and enslaved billions because no one was strong enough to stop them. But strength is not just about weapons and warships. Strength is about choosing to stand for something greater than yourself. He turned to face her. We choose to stand for the people who cannot stand for themselves. That is what humanity has decided to be. And after? If you defeat the Dominion, what then? Will you become the new empire? Vance shook his head. No. We have seen what empires do. They take and consume and eventually collapse under their own weight. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. When the threat is gone, we will help rebuild what was destroyed. We will share our knowledge and our resources. We will create a community of equals, where every species has a voice, and every world has a future. Veleth studied him for a long moment. You truly believe this is possible? I believe that anything is possible if enough people are willing to work for it. Humanity nearly destroyed itself many times in our history. We fought wars over land and resources and ideas. We poisoned our world and hunted our fellow creatures to extinction. But we learned. We grew. We became something better than we were. He smiled. If we can change, so can the galaxy. A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Vance checked his communicator, and his expression shifted to something more urgent. Another distress call, he said. A colony world 2 systems away. Dominion raiders. You have to go. Yes. He turned back to Veleth and extended his hand in a gesture of farewell. More ships will arrive within the week. Hospital vessels, supply transports. Everything your people need. You will not be abandoned again. Veleth took his hand and held it firmly. Thank you, Captain, for everything. Thank you, Commander, for holding on long enough for us to find you. An hour later, the Resolute departed. Valeth watched from the observation deck as the great warship powered up its mysterious engines and tore another hole in the fabric of space. For a moment, she could see something beyond that darkness. A glimpse of distant stars and swirling light. Then, the ship was gone, and the void sealed itself behind it. Sira stood beside her, the stuffed Villani still clutched in her arms. "Will they come back?" "Yes," Veleth said with absolute certainty. "They will come back. And they will bring others. The humans are not going to let us down." How do you know?" Veleth knelt down to look the girl in the eyes. "Because they came when no one else would. Because they risked their lives for people they had never met. Because that is who they choose to be." She smiled and touched Sira's cheek gently. "The darkness is not gone yet. There will be more battles, more danger, more difficult days ahead. But for the first time, in a very long time, we are not facing it alone." Sarah thought about this for a moment, then nodded with the simple acceptance of a child. "I like the humans," she said. "They are kind." "Yes," Veleth agreed, looking out at the stars where the Resolute had vanished. "They are. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between worlds, humanity continued its mission. They answered calls that had gone unanswered for centuries. They stood against cruelty and protected the innocent. They brought hope to places that had forgotten what hope felt like. The long silence was over. Earth had returned to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again.